Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about, specifically, we're going to talk about F. Wesley Schneider's Dragonlance: Shadow of the Dragon Queen. We're in Chapter 4, Shadow of War, and we're going to talk about Lord Bakaris leading leading Knights of Salam. Actually, it's a good question. Is it Calamon City Guards or is it the Knights of Salamnia? Right. I think it's the forces. It's the forces of Calamon, the City Guard. Right. Not the. Excuse me. So Calamon has its own military forces, and some of the people there in that force are soldiers, Calamon soldiers, right? And then soldiers of the city, and then also the Knights of Salamnia, right? So Lord Bakaris is this noble from Vogler. He has the ear of the governor in Calamon, and he's been encouraging the governor to send out forces to fight the Red Dragon army, right? So our player characters they go off to deal with to actually help Tina Rukeldust, who built the boiler drac for the Red Dragon army, but didn't understand the weapon that she was giving to them, right? So so specifically, you have the player characters coming back to Calamon, and when they get back to Calamon, they're given a note, right? And this note is from the knight in training, who is under the knight of Salamnia, Becklin, and specifically, the note says that Lord Bakaris from Vogler has led a force to Steel Spring, right? And Darrett's saying, hey, Bakaris is leading us into ruin, right? So Bakaris says to Governor, hey, we got to get out there, we got to fight the Red Dragon army. But the problem is he has rushed Calamon into war, right? And so the governor has given him some forces, which are Knights of Salamnia, as well as Calamon soldiers. Lord Bakaris from Vogler, this noble from Vogler, right, who's literally a refugee at this point, right, but has standing as a noble. And this is a really important part of Dungeons & Dragons, is understanding that noble title, that is no small deal, right? And we saw this in Star Wars, like Princess Leia, like she's got pull, man. Like a noble title really means a lot. It means a lot in Dungeons & Dragons, and it also means a lot in it definitely means a lot in Dungeons & Dragons, and it means a lot in these fantasy settings, right? And you get this structure, like, whereas the refugee, and look at the difference, right? Lord Bakaris is from Vogler, right? He's inside the walls talking to the governor and gets a force of soldiers given to him, right? The rest of the Vogler refugees are like, you're outside the wall, we'll bring some food out, right? That's the difference between a noble and a commoner, right? It's very interesting. So the Plessis get this letter, and Knight Darrett has gone with Lord Bakaris to attack the Red Dragon army, and they're attacking them at Steel Spring, which is specifically this river crossing in the Inkwater River, and it's 30 miles west of Calamon, okay? So Lord Bakaris leads them all out there. Darrett is absolutely right. They encounter this massive force of the Red Dragon army that is much larger than the force that was given to Lord Bakaris, right? So now Lord Bakaris is out there with a force of Knights of Salamnia and of Calamon soldiers, and they're outmatched, right? The player characters ride out to help them, right? And they run into this, essentially, well, it's not an ambush, like it's literally the opposite of ambush. It's like if you ran your forces into an ambush, right? They're just outnumbered, right? It's not really an ambush. They go to attack the Red Dragon army. The Red Dragon army is provisioned, ready, and has greater numbers than the force that Lord Bakaris brings in, right? So at this point, the player characters sweep in, and this is where it gets interesting, right? The player characters are able to charge in to the fray, right? And the fray is this new mechanic, right, in Dungeons & Dragons, where it's 15 feet in combat. It's 15 feet of chaos, right? and it represents a large number of enemy forces. And if you get with anywhere within this 15 feet, right, you take 2d6 damage every single round. You either when you enter it or when you start your turn in it, right? And this fray can move like a river, right? And so it's really it's very exciting, and it's a fantastic new innovation within Dungeons and Dragons rules. And that's a really cool thing, is that these D&D canon hardbacks are starting to bring, what is the new species? What is the new spell? What is the new magic item? What is the new rules mechanic that you're going to encounter here? Like that, those are the metrics of a D&D canon hardback, which is really exciting. And so the player characters ride in, right, and they help Lord Bakaris, and they specifically aid Lord Bakaris, his forces, and Darrett. Darrett is still alive. Lord Bakaris is still alive. And the player characters quite literally save a whole lot of Kalamon soldiers and save a whole lot of Knights of Solamnia, but they specifically do it by reinforcing their retreat. And this is where it gets really interesting, because F. Wesley Snyder is showing Dungeon Masters and Dungeons and Dragons players the shape of war and the challenges of war and the obstacles of war, right? And also success in failure, right? There's not going to be, and the book really doesn't give the option for a defeat of these Red Dragon Army soldiers, right? Basically, the goal here is to aid in a retreat and save as many lives as possible. And what is truly astounding is, like, you have Dungeons and Dragons players and Dungeons and Dragons dungeon masters looking at exactly how war is structured, right? Retreats, hitting forces that are larger than your own, dealing with politicians who are making bad decisions and leading people into fights that maybe we shouldn't be in. All these problems are front and center, literally, as America looks at the Ukrainian war, and is really getting to the point where we're like, should we just take Russia, right? Like, should we just work with Ukraine, get the whole U.S. Army in there, take over Russia, and then just split it between Ukraine and the U.S., right? And it's really fascinating to see this being played out. See this specific book at this specific time. It is truly incredible. Absolutely loving F. Wesley Snyder's Dragonlance. Truly transformative Dungeons & Dragons D&D canon hardback. Every word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.